Let's speak now to Anupam Manur. He's a professor of economics at the Takshashila Institution. Welcome back to the programme, Professor. Now, Switzerland has rejected the US's forced labour claims as unfounded. How realistic is it for the country to secure an exemption for specialty agricultural goods like cheese?
Thanks for having me on. Honestly, the chances of a cheese exemption are low, and we should understand why. The tariff carve-outs the US is granting are for industrial raw materials that America genuinely can't source at home, such as steel, aluminum, and pharma products. But cheese is the opposite. It's a finished consumer product, and the US already makes an enormous quantities of it. So it's instructive also to look at what Switzerland already did get exempted. Things like diamonds, silk, and believe it or not, live rabbits, but not cheese and not watches. So the realistic path here isn't really a special carve-out for cheese. It's either trying to get a broader bilateral deal going between the two sides. They did have one that they signed last November, and getting that operational and getting cheese as part of it, perhaps, or Switzerland just buckling under and adopting a forced labor import ban that the US wants.
Now, the US is one of the most important export markets for Swiss cheesemakers. How will they fill this gap in sales?
The blunt answer is that I think for the most part, they can't fill it. And I think the Swiss producers are quite aware of it. The US takes roughly 10% of all cheese exports from Switzerland. And for specialty cheeses such as Gruyere, it's, I think, closer to about 33%. So it would be really difficult to replace a market that size overnight. I think what you're going to see instead is a managed decline. So the Gruyere producers, I think, as the report was mentioning, has already cut their output by about 5%. And this is in order to protect the price rather than dumping cheese cheaply. What I think they will do is try to lean into the European market where they're already strong. And because Gruyere is a specialty luxury product, I think some part of that tariff will be passed on to the US consumer.
And Trump has imposed similar tariffs on 60 trading partners. Which countries and industries will be the most impacted by these?
As expected, I think China is clearly the loser here because the new set of tariffs will come on top of the duties it already faces. So the cumulative wall for Beijing would be quite high. Beyond China, of course, the big manufacturing exporters will take the brunt of it. Vietnam, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan. These are the countries that are producing industrial goods and manufacturing and exporting that. I think they will face the brunt of it. And in terms of sectors, again, quite expectedly, it is consumer electronics, machinery, cars and car parts, and even clothing that will face the brunt of it. But what I'd probably stress upon here is that this is a near universal tariff dressed up as a targeted one because it covers about 99.4% of everything America imports. So it's not really a targeted one. It's just another one of Trump's tariff games, which is being disguised as a forced labor issue.
The US Supreme Court had ruled earlier this year that many of the tariffs imposed globally under emergency powers were illegally enacted. How much longer can Trump keep up this game before it backfires on the US economy?
So unfortunately, legally, President Trump can keep doing this. And this time it's a much stronger case than the emergency powers. So this particular act is much more sturdier. And so therefore, President Trump can keep doing this for some time. I think, as you mentioned, the real limit is economic and political, right? The average American tariff rate has climbed from about 2% to nearly 12%. And the Federal Reserve's own research finds that this has added to about 1 full percentage point to core inflation within the US. And the pass-through is almost is quite high. So the American consumers are paying for this. Studies suggest that US consumers and companies bear roughly 90% of the cost, which is about several $100s per household every year. And this is hitting even American farmers through, for example, fertilizer prices. Now, you take all of this into account and take the fact that the midterm elections are coming around the corner. I think that is the only thing that might force a rethink. Otherwise, I think this can go on for some time.
Professor Anupam Manur from the Takshashila Institution, thank you very much for your insights.